Ich darf vorstellen, Mr. Arun Patel. He is polio. And his brother Mayoor. Ich spreche jetzt erstmal auf Deutsch und stelle vor, also diese beiden habe ich kennengelernt, weil jemand, der auch gesagt hat, ich suche tatsächlich, ich möchte helfen Jugendlichen, die Polio haben, in der dritten Welt, in Entwicklungsländern. Und dann haben wir uns auf die Suche begeben und dann sind wir auf Polio Children gestoßen. Und ich habe seit 2 Jahren Kontakt mit den beiden Brüdern. Und sie haben also eine Privatinitiative gestartet, das muss man wirklich sagen. Please sit down. So it's yes. Yeah, okay. So eine Privatinitiative gestartet. Da wird er selber gleich, der Arun Patel, etwas erzählen aus seiner persönlichen Erfahrung, weshalb er dazu gekommen ist, um Polio-Betroffenen und auch ansonsten mobilitätsbehinderten Kindern oder schwerbehinderten Kindern und Jugendlichen eine Ausbildung zu ermöglichen in Indien, in Afrika, in Tansania, in Kenia, in Sierra Leone und Südsudan. Ja? Also das sind also wirkliche Aspekte, wo sie dann mit anderen zusammenarbeiten. Und im letzten Jahr, freue ich mich besonders, im letzten und in diesem Jahr gab es eine Auszeichnung, eine der höchsten Auszeichnungen Großbritanniens für also die Arbeit mit soziale Arbeit sozusagen, also in diesem internationalen Kontext. Und sie sind ausgezeichnet worden sozusagen mit dem britischen Bundesverdienstkreuz, wenn es das gäbe, und persönlich von Mr. Cameron empfangen worden. Und das ist also auch ein Zeichen, dass sie also schon weit entwickelt sind und haben in den letzten 14 Jahren 1,8 Millionen Euro eingesammelt, um entsprechende Dinge in Gang zu bringen. Ja, so 1,8 Millionen. Okay. So, ich will nicht so lange reden. Ich glaube, Sie sprechen besser für sich selber. Sie hören zu. Wir diskutieren hinterher auch gerne. Und ich gebe jetzt das Wort an Mayoor und Arun Patel. So, please start with your. Perhaps you will start with a personal testimonial. Why did you come to do this? Because you was a financial officer, accountancy, and then you started to do this in 2002. Okay. Sit down, please.
It's okay. Yeah. Guten Tag. Ich bin ein Koblenzer. Anyway, that's the only German I know. Before that, all I knew was ich weiß es nicht. Maybe that wouldn't have been much good for you. Yes, thank you very much, Paul. Thank you very much, Dr. Ruetz, and everyone else for inviting us here on this gathering of yours. Really impressive. Last time I went to see the one for the British polio, it was not even half this size, and it wasn't so vibrant as I feel it now. Yes, normally they say that the afternoon slot after lunch is for people to sit down and sleep well, so that I'll see if I can help you to do that. I got polio when I was I was nearly 50 years old when I saw an article in a newspaper saying some Indian kids with polio were coming for some sports. And I got excited. I thought, I thought polio was finished. I had passed it, so it must be finished. So I spoke to the school teacher of that and asked them. I said, "Can I come and see you?" And then I asked them whether I can come and help you. And he said, no, come and visit us, so you'll get a better idea. So I decided to go, in 2002 I decided to go, and I sent an email to my brother Mayoor, and another brother who is in States, he's a physician, and said, I'm going there. So both of them replied in 5 minutes saying they're coming as well. So 3 of us went along in November 2002 to this place, which is about 300 children with polio in one place, in a boarding school. When I went there, I was excited. I got excited, seriously excited. And these two can't understand why. I said, yes, for the first time in my life, I am with the majority, you are in the minority. Here it doesn't matter who crawls, who walks, who stumbles. You guys are in the minority. This is the way to walk now. So I was in homeland. So I got excited. There was a lot of work to be done on there. Mayoor will be telling you in a minute what we did. We got involved. The school was very poor. There was no education for girls. We built a hostel for 140 girls so that they could have education. There was no scope for university education. Food was not adequate. Electricity was irregular. Water supply was not sufficient. So we did a lot of the stuff on the infrastructure. But I think I'll ask Mayoor to take over and tell you what we've been up to in the last 14 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Guten Tag. Ich bin ein Koblenzer. Ein britischer Koblenzer. So I switched to English now. First of all, thank you very much to Dr. Ruetz and Dr. Paul Neuhaus for having us here. Paul for having the patience to talk with me over the last 2 years and get to know us. Get to know our work, and I did tell him, don't do anything. Let me come and present myself, show you what I look like and what our work is all about. Then you decide if you want to help us. But he was off the mark much faster. These polio victims are incredibly fast people to work with. And here's one who keeps me on my toes. So what is polio children about? Polio children, if we just hang on to the idea, is about children devastated by polio and poor. So the first thing that we look at is nutrition, and then we look at education. That's academic education for those who cannot manage academic education so well, vocational training. With one purpose in life, one motto for polio children is to take them through this program of nutrition and education and bring them into mainstream society. And how do we do that? I'll show you a clip which summarizes polio children work. And let me just go back. One second. I just need to get the footage in. Okay, we're almost there. As soon as Thomas comes near me, things happen. And thank you also, Thomas. So just a summary. It's very fast. So what I'll do is, first time round, I'll just stop it at 1 or 2 places to tell you what's going on and what happened. And then I'll just run it through once so it gives you a flavor. So, I just want to... You saw the girl sliding across the desert there. In our work, we come across a lot of children who have polio and can't walk, and they have to drag themselves from A to B. Now, later in the footage, later in the presentation, you will see what we can do with children who, as they get older, and how we can bring them into mainstream society. So we go again. This is a kid who came to the London Para Games, and he took 5 gold medals. Both his legs are infected with polio. He can't use his legs but he's something like 15 feet up in the air. There's no soft landing, and on that pole he stands and he does his acrobatics and yoga asanas, different postures. This is an incredible recent story. Polio Children is also about going to very remote parts of the world where nobody dares to go. This is South Sudan, the youngest country in the world, completely torn by civil war. And here is a girl who's got polio in both legs, and she was walking 3 miles in the desert terrain to school and 3 miles back. And she would insist on going to school every day. Even if her knees were bleeding, she would tie rags, cloths, old cloths, and still walk to school and back, because she knows her future is not anything else but education. And what Polio Children did was got her a tricycle. She now uses a tricycle to go to school and back every day, and she also has a cycle so that she can roam around the local village. And more importantly, Polio Children picks the tab for her education. Most powerful of all, and earlier I was asked this question, how can a charity have zero administration costs? Well, we do have administration costs, but they are met by the founding trustees, so we pay for those. So for example, for every pound or euro we get, I shouldn't say euro, pound, for every pound we get, we deliver £1.18 to £1.20 to the beneficiary because of the British gift aid program. I will just run it through once, and this time I won't say anything, so it gives you the flavor. So the education program, as Arun mentioned earlier, I'll give you the latest figures. I'll just, although it says 200 there, over 220 students have been through our university program. And that means we sponsor them for the university fees and for education, for their food, for a little bit of clothing, etc. And they've gone on to become working people, and just like you and I. 65 or so are in the program at the moment. And they range, the activities range from becoming doctors to now nurses, teaching, and technology. And I'll give you some examples. The most incredible thing about these students is once they start working, they don't just feed themselves. They actually end up feeding their immediate family and their extended family. Try getting one of our children to do that. Here's an example of one of the very first girls that graduated from our program. She not only graduated, got a job, ended up marrying an able-bodied boy, completely unheard in this culture, because here, if you're poor, you're a girl, you just have no chance of marriage, and if you're disabled, absolutely no hope in hell. And this was our first one, and we were delighted because it happened so early on. She became a teacher, she married, and what's more important, her first baby was an able-bodied baby. A lot of these children that we work with throughout the world, they just think of one thing, and that is, if I've got polio, my children will have polio. What a thing to live with. Okay, this is another story which is very powerful because here's a girl who has polio in both her legs and in her right arm. So the only working arm is the left arm. And on the left there, she was given a tricycle which even I couldn't maneuver. It was just so difficult. Anyway, she came on our program, she became a teacher. She today is putting through 2 of her brothers through school from her salary. She's looking after her mother and grandmother, and she's looking forward to bringing the family to a town situation rather than the village. And on the right, you see there a very proud owner at the courtesy of polio children. We provided her with an auto scooter so she can get around and do her work. The other incredible part of that scooter is she actually takes in her university days, she was taking 2 able-bodied girls on the back to university and back. So, what a function. So now, something interesting is happening. We moved from India to Tanzania. Here, what we're seeing is, since we started our program, more girls are coming into the education stream. And it's exciting for us because they're also going further. And we have a saying in Africa, it takes a woman to bear a child, but it takes a whole village to bring the child up. We have another saying in our Indian culture, you educate a girl, you educate a family. You educate a man, don't know what happens. So this project in Tanzania, we're working on various aspects, and there we've developed a chicken farm, we've developed farming for them so they can learn some skills and become either farmers or revenue-generating projects. And the idea is to work on this project so that in 3 to 5 years, and we've set a goal 3 years, it becomes independent. And that would be quite an achievement. And to give you an idea of some good role models there, on the left you see Wilbert with crutches. He became a lecturer, and he's an incredible supporter of the program. He is always there to make sure any deal we're doing, we're getting the best deal. That's all he's interested in for the campus. On the right, you see a fairly plump gentleman, Nazoro, on a cycle. He trained to become a carpenter. He now does the carpentry for the campus, but he teaches youngsters how to become carpenters. Give them a skill. Yep. Teach them to fish, and they can fish. They can eat for the rest of their lives. One of the challenges in a lot of these projects is they don't have fuel, so they burn wood. When they burn wood, the eyes get irritated, smoke goes into them, end up with bronchitis and also upper respiratory diseases and challenges. So we thought about this and we said, we need a new kitchen, we need proper stoves which use less wood and no smoke, because the smoke also ends up affecting the cooks as well as the children. And this is just a delivery of new stoves, new kitchen, and that there is feedback. I'm not going to read it, but I'll tell you what happened. The cooks wrote back and said, whoever did this should be blessed, because now we don't have to breathe the smoke, we do not have to get coughs, we do not have to have these diseases that we were getting, and we're using less fuel, less wood to cook the same amount of food. Now this is precious there, because wood is very difficult to get over there, and that's all they have to burn. Quick one here, we moved to Nigeria. This is a character who was going to be thrown out. He was at university in England. He was going to be thrown out because he didn't have any fees. He got in touch with us. We looked at the case, went to the university, and we said, you know what, you're not going home. We're going to sponsor you. We sponsored him. He did his master's. He went back, and he became the head of a statistics department in the Ministry of Planning. Last time I spoke with him, he's been promoted. He has a whole department underneath him. And every time I speak with him, he's only interested in one thing. Can you guess? He tells me, when am I going to be the ambassador of polio children in Nigeria? When am I going to be doing projects for polio children in Nigeria? And I tell him as soon as it's safe. So from there we moved to Sierra Leone. This one is at my heart for the simple reason. This is a country that was at civil war for 10 years. Just as they were coming out of civil war, beginning to stabilize, children who didn't go to school for a generation, that's missed out schooling, they were hit with Ebola. This is an incredible disease. Not only that, we, in this polio camp where the families, over 100 families live there, they are all cordoned off. The only good thing that came out of the Ebola crisis in our case was not a single person died of Ebola in the Makeni polio camp. One person did, and that was their secretary, who lived outside the camp. So here, we had a challenge. They were working on a project to help them create a revenue-creating project and also to get children back to school. But initially, because of the civil war and the Ebola crisis, the main challenge was food. So polio children came into action. We delivered some food for them. We delivered cooking utensils to keep them in the camp until Ebola was declared safe. And there you can see the delivery of the things. Transparency. Whenever donors and sponsors give or donate, they like to see the transaction audit trailed so that they know their money has gone in the right place. Here, you see people signing for the goods they were given and the food they were given. But those who could not sign, if you look at the left-hand side, you have some signatures and you have some thumbprints. So everything is totally accounted for. Right. Do you remember earlier I mentioned the crawling children who have to crawl on all fours? They have to use their hands and their legs to get around. In Kenya, we have started a program. In fact, the first delivery started last week. On the left-hand side, you see the hut where you're going to see a lady, Iriani. She lives, and she has lived in that all her life. She has not been able to get out. Imagine going to bathroom, cooking, eating everything in one room. Okay? This is not a studio flat, by the way. And on the right is the tricycle we delivered. Now, these are pictures of Iriani. She's actually crying. From the moment it was delivered to her to the moment our team left, all she did was cry. And her face is swollen because she's crying. Do you want to guess why she's crying? She's crying because nobody ever thought of her. She's crying because for the first time in her life, she's going to be able to get out of her house. She's crying because for the first time in her life, she's going to go out to the market. She's going to be able to sell a few fruits and vegetables and make a few shillings. And that is the dignity she's looking for. She doesn't want handouts. This is the power of polio children. And on the right-hand side, she's got a thank you banner for us. But we can't get her to talk. So, in essence, whilst majority of our discussion today has been, quite rightly, for the participants here to do with post-polio, we also have an issue. It is very easy for organizations to go around the world saying polio is eradicated. And the victims I speak to, they say polio is eradicated when the last polio victim leaves this planet. And I couldn't agree more with them, because every day in my work, I come across children that are suffering from polio. And my question then is to myself and to my board, what are we going to do about it? We had exchanges of emails and calls with Ukraine. Recently, there were 2 cases in Ukraine. Nepal. Polio is still around. Children are suffering. What do we do? So this is where polio children comes in. Some independent recognition of our work. It feels good that, yes, somebody's watching us and auditing our work and, giving us a little token of appreciation. So the final step of eradication is, catching the victims who fall through the net of immunization. So if immunization might have gone right around the world, but there is that one little step that we have to address. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say Dankeschön from my side, and I would like to hand over to Arun to just close the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayoor. Thank you all for seeing this. Actually, I'd like to just take on the last point about eradication. Eradication is definitely the right thing to do, but it has been given so much publicity, so much of coverage. How many in this room actually suffer from polio? Just a show of hands. How many of you reach? Right. Okay. If I was to ask you at the age of 10, when you were 10 and you had polio, and someone came along and said, it doesn't matter, it's okay, but you know something, we're going to get rid of it. How would it sound to you at the age of 10, when you already had polio? And all you're getting is eradication, eradication. There's nothing wrong with it. But this is what the beneficiaries of our program are suffering from. You see, they've been nicely ignored altogether. And I think it's mainly because the whole world wants to forget polio and wants to forget polio altogether and polio victims as well. And that's what I sense it. And that's why, you know, we have to stand up and be counted, especially those who got polio, because, you know, it's not fair. It's not fair on the others who have actually got polio, and all they are here is about eradication. The second thing I think about eradication is when you have a massive world program to eradicate, Bill Gates, World Health Foundation, Rotary, everyone throwing in their billions and millions. Has anyone actually seen what polio is? Why polio? They're too shy to show these things. All they want to show is purple flowers, nothing wrong with it. Or some badges and some sort of thing that you're part of polio. Let's get rid of it, end of polio, eradication. But for goodness sake, you know, wouldn't this make a bigger impact? Why we are eradicating? There is no reason. I mean, you know, we want to polio out of the world. Fine, great. You want polio people out of the world as well. But at least have a look. Why? So those are the two things that I wanted to share with you in terms of eradication. There's nothing wrong. I wholeheartedly agree with eradication, but really the message delivered is totally wrong. The way it's been delivered, the message is totally wrong. You know, everyone in polio who's suffering polio, we have got a legacy to give over. We have to make sure that we do not walk away without really telling the world that it is an evil disease and it should be got rid of. And this is why it's evil. And that's why we need to put it right, because polio is not about just physical. It's psychological, and you must all know, it's psychological, it's mental. It lives with your life. It reminds you almost every other day that you've got polio, you're different. And these societies like here, they're even much worse. At least it's in the West, it's a more tolerant society that accepts you and that caters for you and accommodates you. In here, they're nothing. You know, quite often it's nothing. So there's such things. One of the reason, and I would like to finish off in a high note, some of the real success stories we've had, statistics don't tell you everything. The fact that we've looked after 1,200 kids, we've sent 220 kids to university, we've built these facilities for the crawling children. Statistics don't talk about the real people, the real change, the real transformation. The real change, the real transformation is, and in India, for example, we've been working for 15 years, where a girl, as it is in a society, is right at the bottom of the family. A disabled girl, quite often, is murdered, because she is an extra burden to the poor family in terms of food. Now, an educated girl, we've got 30 of them. They are the main breadwinners of the family. They have become right at the top of the hierarchy. They actually now demand that they don't want any Tom, Dick and Harry, they don't want to marry to any Tom, Dick and Harry that their parents bring along or their relations bring along. They're demanding able-bodied, educated, well-funded boys to marry them.
Yeah.
Now,
Fantastic.
The person who started this school said, 1,000 years of tradition, you have changed it. You made a start on a change for 1,000 years, because people saw polio girls and polio children, polio boys and girls, as purely those who were going to beg on the streets. They never come across anyone who had got educated. We turned the whole thing around. Let's just educate them, because that's the only thing they'll be good at. And that's where the transformation is. So I'd like to just share with you with on a high note. All is not lost. We can win. We will make sure that things get better. I haven't mentioned a single thing to them about post-polio syndrome. I think they've got enough on their plate as it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much for this testimonial with energy. And it's a real transformation we see also in our hearts. So it's very important to see that polio is a disease, but there are many people suffering in the world. 50 million, I told in the morning. 15 million who have real problems, and they are almost, for the moment, they are almost young people, but they are also old people. And there will be, we are the protagonist of Post-Polio syndrome in Germany, in Europe, and this will come to the other countries in Africa, in Asia, in Latin America, and this will be a great help for them if they come in this state. So we have to think this is the future. What we are working for the future of the polios. So I think it was amazing to see that three boys, three boys built up this polio children organization so effectively, and so we can see we can do a lot. Wir können sehr viel tun für unsere Polio-Brüder und Schwestern, um es mal so zu sagen. Ich würde jetzt gerne in eine Diskussion. Shall we start a discussion and perhaps some questions, get some questions und dann können wir ein paar Fragen stellen, wie es weitergeht. So I give you Arun, I give you this one, you expect? So at least, vielleicht ist ein Kanal. 2 ist der Kanal oder 1. Okay, also ich spreche jetzt Deutsch und Arun muss jetzt eine Übersetzung auf Englisch hören. Ja? You hear English? Okay.
Yes, I do. Yes.
So, also. Okay, wir können also jetzt einfach in eine Diskussion starten. Ich würde auch gerne auf Deutsch Fragen stellen, das ist dann einfacher und es wird übersetzt. Ja? Also gerne irgendwelche Wortmeldungen. Vielleicht meine erste Frage, ja, als Icebreaker. Also dieses Erlebnis in Indien mit dieser Schule, wie Arun du geschildert hast, das war der Beginn eurer Initiative. Aber wie kommt man an andere Menschen, dass sie dann Geld geben, um sowas zu unterstützen? Und wie kommt man an diese Projekte, dass man in Indien und in Afrika, ja?
In answer to your question, first question, how do we raise money? I was fortunate enough that I had a very successful accountancy practice and I had about 500 clients. So I bullied each and every one of them to sort of donate. And then it started off from there. I was quite amazed. So many people wanted to donate, wanted to give money, but didn't know whether the right cause, whether it was the right cause or not. So what we did was we did one thing. One was to establish a registered charity. And the other one was no administration costs. So whatever people gave, all the administration costs of making tapes, of printing materials, traveling, everything was borne by us, the three founding trustees. And to date, we have spent over £35,000 on administration costs, but we have not taken anything from polio children. So that was a very attractive thing. And because of the connections we had in UK, it started traveling everywhere about our charity through the Facebook media and everything else. And we started getting legacies. We've only held 3 functions in UK, 3 major functions, and each one raised something like £50,000. And a lot of people wanted to sponsor a kid. So on average, we've got 60 kids to university every year. So people want to sponsor a kid because they want to educate someone. We link them up with a specific student and tell them how the progress of the student and how the student goes, how the student actually has managed to transform things. Some of the stories we've got on students is quite unbelievable. In 3 years' time after education, what they've done, some of them have wiped out their family's debts completely. They've studied, they've earned good enough money to wipe them out. They've started helping the families. And things like that. So it's very, very satisfying for those donors. So money raising has not been, to be honest, a very major problem for us. Identifying projects has been, because we wanted to make sure that there are projects where there is enough accountability, there is transparency, and we are at a distance from UK, but we wanted to make sure that, what we want it to be done is done in those projects. So we link up with organizations that look after children with polio. But the one in Tanzania, the one in India, the one in Kenya as well now. We are linking up not with the individuals, but with the people who actually are looking after the kids. So we just make sure that they're doing their job properly.
So, gerne Fragen. Fragen zu Hilfsmitteln. Wie sieht die Hilfsmittelsituation aus? Wir haben etwas gesehen. Wir haben spezielle Konstruktionen gesehen von Fahrrädern, von Rollstühlen. Macht es Sinn, hier Rollstühle nach Afrika zu transportieren oder wie geht das? Wie kann man helfen?
Yes, you can help in many ways. I think your help will come very handy in 15, 20 years' time when post-polio is quite well established in terms of facts and figures, and some of these people will need that assistance. Meanwhile, I think you can, wheelchairs is not easily transferable, but we have a situation where there are organizations that actually give 1 million wheelchairs a year over to the needy places, and we link up with them, and we just collect the funds and make sure that they are delivered. So we don't take the task of actually transferring the wheelchairs. In terms of how you can help, maybe also we'll look into sponsorships of kids when kids are in universities, and when we're running short of sponsors. And we normally ask those organizations in Kenya and in Tanzania and India, what are their major projects, what are their major requirements, and then we then link up with people who are potentially going to help us. So.
First, I will thank you very much for this beautiful presentation. Ich will das auf Deutsch sagen, damit es allgemein vielleicht erstmal verstanden wird und Sie hören es dann ja übersetzt. Sie haben gesagt, dass WHO, Bill Gates Stiftung, Rotary das Blickfeld für die Polio-Eradikation hat und dass man eigentlich die Polio-Victims, die Opfer, die Überlebenden nicht vergessen sollte. Aber ich glaube, hier hat ein Wechsel stattgefunden, und gerade wenn man sieht, was nicht nur der Bundesverband Polio hier leistet und angefangen hat, ich spreche jetzt nicht unbedingt von so einer Lokomotive, die durch Deutschland unbemerkt mit End Polio Now fährt seit Jahren. Also es gibt Verträge und ein Miteinander zwischen Rotary und zwischen dieser Association für die Polio-Eradikation, sondern auch was die EPU macht, auf gerade John McFarlane und was die anderen europäischen Staaten machen in der Welt, kann ich sagen, das ist der richtige Weg. Und ist das nicht für Sie eigentlich auch eine Idee, auf diese Institutionen, die bis heute daran arbeiten, mit auch viel Geld Polio zu eradizieren? Das ist ja eigentlich die Basis allen Ausschaltens. Das ist ja mit der Polio wie bei den Pocken eigentlich das Beispiel, wie man eine Krankheit nie wiedersehen wird, aber dass man eben diese Opfer nicht vergisst, dass man mit diesen Institutionen auch Kontakt pflegt und zusammenarbeitet.
Yes, this is a very good point, Dr. Rich. I'm myself a member of a Rotary Club, and I've made presentations to the Rotary Club. The fact at the moment is that they are so obsessed about eradication that the moment I mention that, oh, well, we're looking after some polio victims and polio things, they say, oh, doesn't worry, our focus is on eradication. We've got to make these organizations be aware that your responsibility lies beyond eradication. After eradication, there still will be the things to keep them, get the house cleaned up, and that is looking after the ones. I'll be blunt about it. The world had promised in 1996 that the polio would be finished. So if it's 1996, it's 20 years now. We would not be sponsoring kids to university for more than a couple of years if that was the case. Our job would have been finished. It hasn't. And I think, to be honest, some of these organizations should have that responsibility, saying they should allocate some of that budget now and say, okay, we should be looking after the kids with polio. And because maybe they are not showing the true horrors of the disease because they may have to do something about it. And that's why when I go to Rotary or when I've seen their publications and everything else is very light-hearted about give money and let's get rid of polio. What is polio? Oh, we don't know. I ask a lot of people in the Western world, what is polio? They don't know, especially the youngsters. But we must get rid of it. I mean, sounds crazy to me. You know, it's time we should do that. So at some stage we will have to take this activity further and take our example and at a government level or at the Polio Federation level and say, you know, can we now make representations on this?
Ich will nur bemerken, ich werde nächstes Jahr, das weiß ich heute schon, gebucht, 4 Vorträge über Post-Polio-Syndrom bei Rotary-Clubs in Deutschland halten. Und ich bin mir sicher, dass das einen Effekt haben wird.
Are we done, Paul?
Sind noch Fragen? Also gerne. Einfach vor. Das ist nicht der Fall. So. Doch, da ist eine Frage. Das ist sehr gut. Wer war's?
Wie funktioniert das mit der Durchimpfung in den verschiedenen Ländern?
Thomas is being kept fit.
Yes, that's a very good question. Vaccinations have worked very well. India has been declared polio-free for the last 4 years, I think. So the entire Southeast Asia, which was one of the major polio areas, has been declared polio-free for 4 years, I think. 4 years we went to reception at the House of Lords. So yes, the vaccination is working very well. It's the final disease, the killer 3 disease, which they can't finish it off. And that's the one only in 3 countries now: Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Nigeria. So but because of the mobility, because there's a lot of mobility around, the polio travels free of charge with those human beings, and unfortunately that's something we can't control. But that's it's apart from 3 countries, it's over. Let's hope so. And this time, unlike 1996, I hope they don't take their eye off the ball. They really need to finish it off this for once and for all, for our sake, for people who got polio. You know, we are sick of hearing this. You know, they're going to get rid of polio.
And just for the benefit of the participants here, the definition of eradication, according to the World Health Organization, is no new case for 3 years running. But unfortunately, this doesn't sit well with people who have the disease themselves, because that continues to be the case. So I think we need to be aware 3 years is not really a long period of time.
Ja, ich denke, wir haben da einen sehr guten Eindruck gewonnen von Ihrer Arbeit, und der eine oder andere mag vielleicht auch sagen, oh, vielleicht kann ich da mal unterstützen. Ja, da kann man dann Kontakt direkt aufnehmen mit Polio Children. Im Augenblick haben sie noch keine steuerlich absetzbare Möglichkeit in Deutschland, aber vielleicht ergibt sich das, wenn mehr Nachfrage ist. Ja, und dann haben sie auch noch eine Filiale in Deutschland sozusagen. Vielleicht einen Satz auch nochmal aus Sicht des Bundesverbandes Polio. Also wir sind natürlich sehr dafür, dass weiter am Eradication-Programm gearbeitet wird und dass auch die Impfmüdigkeit nicht zu groß wird, denn wir bekommen dann Probleme. Wir haben hier ja auch Gäste aus Österreich, und wir wissen zum Beispiel, dass in Österreich die Impfrate deutlich niedriger ist als in Deutschland. Und wenn wir dann Bevölkerungsströme haben, Flüchtlingsströme, dann kann es ganz schnell passieren, dass Polio wieder auftaucht, weil wir impfmüde geworden sind. Und deswegen ist es wichtig, immer wieder auch daran zu erinnern, dass man impft, auch wenn man Polio fast gar nicht mehr kennt. Also insofern haben wir hier zwei Herzen in unserer Brust, also einmal Eradication, Impfen, ja, und zum anderen dann auch die Folgen lindern und dann das große Thema Post-Polio, was eben auf viele in der Welt noch zukommt. So, ich darf mich herzlich bedanken bei Ihnen für diese tolle Vorstellung. Jetzt haben wir etwas verstanden, was macht Polio Children, was haben Polio-Opfer in Entwicklungsländern alles zu erleiden. Wir haben das noch so ein bisschen in Erinnerung, und Wir haben noch einen Tropfen für Sie beide. Ja, und für Mayoor.
Thank you very much.
Und ich hoffe, dass wir auch in Zukunft vielleicht die ein oder andere Veranstaltung zusammen organisieren können und vor allen Dingen auch auf internationalem Bereich noch mehr zusammenarbeiten können. Also herzlichen Dank.
Thank you. Thank you very much.